This is Peter Helland, and we're going to call this Citizens for Community Media because we've always done shows there on public access, but now we're on YouTube, and I guess most everybody knows us by YouTube. But we have come out to Columbus, Ohio. Paul O'Neill's come, and we're here with Hugh Miller. And I've known Hugh Miller from a conference that he came and was a participant in at St. Mary's College about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I bought a book off his table, Texas Tracts and Artifacts. And we're going to kind of go into some of this because he's an expert on this aspect of challenging evolution by analyzing that there is human footprints alongside dinosaur footprints. But the history that we have here together, the three of us actually, Paul's dad graduated from Notre Dame in 1946, my dad in 43, and your dad...
And did not graduate, as I mentioned to you earlier, but he quit after his third year in chemistry. And
what year?
And probably 1901, something like that.
1901.
Yeah, that tells you my age. Okay, but anyway, the good Lord has been very good to me, and so has allowed me to find out an awful lot of stuff, like Peter has. And we are both here to try to explain why the theory of evolution is mythology.
Right, and then the scripture verse that we can jump into to give a little the scriptural context, okay, where the battle's at.
Yeah.
Paul wrote to Timothy, 2 Timothy chapter 4, and he says, verse 2, preach the word, be instant in season, out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all longsuffering and doctrine, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears, and they shall turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables. And the issue of evolution and creation, it seems like I've heard people argue that continues to be the hottest issue, and it's been the hottest issue. I mean, we have issues like the coronavirus, who's telling the truth? You got false science there. You got issues of 9/11, what really happened there at 9/11. Science doesn't seem to fit there. But I don't think there's anything bigger than the issue, the debate amongst theologians and scientists on what's the truth. Is evolution true, or is the creation account true, or what's been plaguing the Catholic Church? They want to say, they're both true. It's theistic evolution.
Correct. Yeah.
But I think that the average person on the street, especially at Notre Dame, if you go out and about and you tell somebody, Notre Dame teaches evolution, their jaw usually drops because the average person goes, I thought they were Catholic. In other words, nobody believes you can hold both at the same time. Okay? But somehow they got persuaded they can. And you discovered earlier on that you can't hold both together.
That's right. I heard from a Jesuit priest from Georgetown University that you could believe in evolution as long as you believe God, small g, infuse a soul in the body of the evolving creature. Well, what is that creature? Well, the best example that we know of is possibly a chimpanzee or a baboon. And I have a daughter who calls me, I call her a funny name, and she finally called me baboon. Well, so maybe I am came from a baboon. Now, does that mean that Christ came from a baboon? That is his background, besides David, may have been a baboon prior to that, or a chimpanzee. Well, this is insulting. This is blasphemy.
Right, and that's what turned you around. That was 1968?
In 1968, I heard that and I accepted it. And then I met some creationists, and I remember that my great uncle, who was by marriage, he was a Methodist, but he used to read Genesis 1 to 11, or parts of it, particularly the first part, to me when I was like 17 years old and stayed at his farm. And that all it ricocheted in my mind when I talked to these non-Catholics who were creationists, and I said, oh my gosh. Then I remembered what he said and reading the Bible. Oh, I was furious. Like, I've been brainwashed. I've been indoctrinated.
Really? It hit you
Yeah,
that?
it hit. Yeah, but I haven't been indoctrinated that much other than in high school and college. This goes back to 1953 when I graduated from Ohio State University. Pardon mentioning that name, okay?
I'm from Wisconsin.
You forgive me, all right? I graduated from there in chemistry. And so it just hit me so hard when I met these people and be very, very fast friends with them. I became involved with the Institute for Creation Research, not physically, but just getting their literature.
Well, at
that
time, I was studying evolution at Notre Dame, Father Murphy,
Yeah.
and I still have the book.
I was changing over at the time you were getting brainwashed.
Yeah, but I got into it. I was thinking, well, I'm not playing around with this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pursue this. And if people asked me at the time, do you believe in God? I'd say no, because no, I'm pursuing this. And I don't see where God fit. The priest never mentioned God in the whole freshman year.
We all come to the realization sooner or later. And what we have to do is to try to convince our people who are listening to us and to get the word out that this is all mythology that has been indoctrinated into our children.
Right. So in other words, what we said here, it will turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto fables.
Yeah,
what they call
fables.
The fable truth.
Well, the Greeks and the Romans had their mythology. And all we're doing is getting the same kind of information with science being misused as the technique for indoctrination.
Well,
I don't know what they did back in the time of the Greeks and Romans, but they had goddesses and goddesses. And they had a theory of how they got there, too. And this is similar to what we have now.
Well, this is 2 Timothy. 1 Timothy, it closes, Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called, which some professing have erred concerning the faith. So they call it science,
right?
But you discovered it's not really science.
No. There's no experimentation. It's just speculation and false assumptions, which I would like to read for you from this excellent paper by but it's Ghiberto. He's a sedimentologist, and he was awarded the sedimentology preface by the head of the French Academy of Sciences back in 1980s, I think. But he states in his latest article entitled Disastrous Consequences of A Priori's Assumptions in Natural Science Replaced by Facts. Now, he's a sedimentologist, and he has shown that the sediments that we all pass on the highways and through highway cuts, you see the strata. Well, that strata, he learned, and by doing the experiments, were developed rapidly, not over, inches per
not
1,000
like
years.
Right.
That's geology. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that book up. You ought to tear that up in front of the audience someday.
No,
anyway,
evidence.
This is what he says, and this is the truth. You'll hear this name before. You have heard it. The condemnation created reactions among philosophers. First, Descartes, Discours de la Méthode, 1637, which envisioned a complete mathematization of science, basing the latter no longer on facts, but primarily on clear and distinct ideas. ideas that he had and other people could come up with in this Enlightenment period.
Right. Beginning of the Enlightenment.
That's correct. He was part of the problem. Of course, our Paula Haig, the theologian, we got to get this kind lady into this picture. She goes back even further than our good friend, what is his name here again?
Descartes?
Descartes, yeah. Long before him, there were other characters that were doing the same thing. They never got accepted, probably because they were undercut by the Vatican of that period.
But Descartes was able to break through.
He broke through, but he was condemned by the church. His books were not condemned. His books were condemned. He wasn't, of course. And I don't even think he was excommunicated. But his works were definitely on the list. Bad books, okay? And so in this way that I just described briefly of his background, the Descartes to Hegel, we all know who Hegel was, rationalism developed, and then in the social and political realms, the revolution was fermented, first against the church, followed by the monarchies. You were talking about that earlier. And then the terror, which would have been the French Revolution, the Masonic Masons, then the Napoleonic Wars, then the First World War, then the Second World War. All this, as even Fatima has told us about, there's going to be a Second World War unless we do penance and stop this craziness that we're involved in, this immorality.
We don't repent of our sins, because they couldn't endure sound doctrine.
That's right.
They couldn't. Well, like you brought it up, that one of the main reasons that the world grabbed on to Darwin's Origin of Species was they were chafing under the Victorian age, which said no sex till you get married. And they said, no, we can't endure that sound doctrine.
Okay.
And they gathered around themselves teachers
that
told them.
With itching ears.
Right. And evolution was a teaching that allowed them to weasel out under that strict, no sex till you get married.
And they're still weaseling.
Oh, they're going crazy.
Yeah.
It goes from generation to generation, I would presume.
Yeah.
Or they try to influence or pollute the next generation.
Yeah.
But from what I can tell, the so-called Z or Zoomer generation isn't buying any of this at all. They're even, rude in their responses to all the, as we knew in what I don't call them the boomer, I call them the doomer generation. We all knew about sex and drugs and rock and roll. That was the whole cry in the 60s. And apparently the Zoomers, who would be our grandchildren, just don't buy that at all now.
Yeah, I have 15 grandchildren, and I tried to raise my 7 children, 3 boys and 4 girls properly. And I know one girl, she's now in her 50s. She has a daughter. She only could have one child. That daughter is making up her mind on which university to go to. And Notre Dame was one of the first ones they looked at, and the first one they got rid of.
She could have gotten into Notre Dame?
Yeah, she's a brilliant kid, the top in her class.
And then she didn't want to go?
No, her mother and father wouldn't let her go there, whether she would want to or not. I don't know the situation specifically, but she's very happy. She got to choose one of several universities. One was a Jesuit university, I think up at Akron. And then they checked out Steubenville Franciscan University, and that was the lesser of many evils. So she's going there.
Steubenville.
Yeah, she's going to there next fall if it opens up.
But why didn't she like Notre Dame?
The parents didn't like Notre Dame.
Did they? Why? They tell you why?
No, they're not Catholic.
Oh.
Okay.
They discovered by going there? They found out?
No, I don't know. They just read the literature and listened to other people and decided that we're not going to let our child go there. Plus, they've heard me speak about 2 family members, cousins. One went to Holy Cross. He's probably in his 90s, if he's still around. And he lost his faith and became a an atheist.
Oh my God.
And what
You
happened?
lost it at Notre Dame?
Holy Cross was a Jesuit university.
The Holy Cross Brothers, probably.
Brothers. Oh, Holy
Notre
Cross
Dame
Brothers.
is run by the Holy Cross Brothers.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains
So
it.
he was a Holy Cross brother?
Yeah.
Well, they
No, he
teach-
wasn't a brother. I mean, he went there.
Well, the Holy Cross is a college across the street from Notre Dame.
No, this was on up in Massachusetts.
Oh.
Yeah, the Holy Cross College in
Yeah, that's-
Massachusetts is
oh,
a
that's
Jesuit,
Jesuit,
college.
right?
Very
Oh, it
famous.
is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh yeah,
That's
you're
one of the
familiar.
four
You graduated
big-
from Gonzaga up in the
Good
Spokane.
old gone stagnant undiversity. Yes.
But he became an atheist.
I'm an alumnus.
The
Anyway,
only reason he got his
yeah.
faith back again, he married a Lutheran.
Oh, you got it back. Well, see, South Bend, I don't know if you
I'm
know.
not sure he got it back. Okay.
In Notre Dame, a lot of people know Pete Buttigieg was running for president.
Yes.
Both his parents taught at Notre Dame, and his dad was from Malta, and his dad was studying to be a Jesuit priest. And I think, from everything I'm hearing, the Jesuits were dominated by, I don't say it right, Pierre de Chardin.
Desjardins.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so I bet Peter Buttigieg's dad studied under Chardin, believed in evolution, and then became a Gramscian. He's basically an atheist Marxist.
Yeah.
But that'll happen if you believe in evolution. Can it easily happen?
Oh, absolutely. And it's just so sad. And my father went to Notre Dame for 3 years, and I don't know what happened to him, his religion, but he lost his religion to some extent. And it was only through a great aunt that he made sure, and she did too, probably mostly her, made sure I got a Catholic education from good nuns.
But your dad died when you were 10.
When I was 10, yeah. But he did go to Mass with me every Sunday. Before that, he wasn't going very often.
Okay.
So I think the good nuns convinced me, and then as a wild kid, I'm just saying, hey, you better do this, Dad. You're in the wrong. You better go to Mass with me every Sunday.
Oh, you did at age 9.
Yeah, so he'd fall asleep like I'm doing right now when I go to Mass sometimes. But anyway, that's the story of my family to some extent. Okay.
Okay, but your dad studied chemistry, which you didn't know at first,
I did not know that.
and then
no.
you ended up studying chemistry.
I went to Notre Dame for my youngest girl's soccer team. And while we were up there, we knew that my father went to Notre Dame, so we got all the data we could about him and when he was up there. And I can remember a letter we got that was addressed to the priests at Notre Dame, pleading with them to get her son, my father, away from some of the people that he was running around with.
Oh, bad influence.
Bad influence. So I don't know what was going on up there, at Notre Dame. Now I know it from talking to you and you and many other people, and my family has felt the same way about Notre Dame.
Well, now, just on the chemistry note, just a point of bragging.
Yeah, you did bring that up.
But my mom's uncle, her mother's brother, got his PhD in chemistry from Harvard in 1924. Right, and so then he, sorry. He got it at age 24, and he was part of the World War I chemical war division.
Oh, yeah.
And then in World War II, he was part of the the division that was overseeing the Manhattan Project. Okay. Now, it's kind of still secretive. Nobody, it's like it always was secretive.
Yeah.
But chemistry had to play some role in all this. Chemistry plays a big role in everything.
Well, yeah. Well, I was in the Army. I finally typed up my own transfer papers. Finally, it went through channels, and I was transferred to the Army Chemical Center from Fort Devens, Massachusetts. Now, I ended up in a portable laboratory with hoods and everything. And they had the portable laboratory. I stayed in, of course, in a barracks. But there we analyzed nuclear ores from foreign countries, let's put it that way. Highly secret. But we were doing that back in 1950s at the Army Chemical Center, Maryland.
So you were in the Army?
I was in the Army, right, yeah.
You didn't go to Korea or anything?
No.
Okay.
There was some, Korea was over by the time I came in.
Okay.
It was over. I came in 53 in the fall, and the armistice was set up in
Okay.
the in that summer or in the spring.
Okay. So you're familiar with how the military.
Oh yeah.
Well,
yeah.
you have a picture up here of General Sherman.
Well, we don't want to talk about him, do we? I thought you put an anathema on him.
Well, I'm sure he was a great soldier, but
Yeah, well, he had 3 brothers, half brothers. He was adopted because his father died.
okay.
And he was
That makes
adopted
sense.
at age 7 by my family called the Ewings. This part of the family called the Ewings. And the Ewings raised the Thomas Ewing was a senator from the state of Ohio. And he was a salt miner prior to that in West Virginia. But he married a Catholic, and he became a Catholic on his deathbed. But Sherman was raised by him, and
So he's in your family.
yeah, he married his half sister, who was not related to him, of course. Okay,
Wow.
and so they had 8 children, and there's a bunch of little Shermans running around.
Well, Sherman gave
Yeah,
he gave the commencement speech at Notre Dame in 1865, but his wife was there.
Oh, was
And
she?
if you go by Notre Dame, as Paul would know, the main road there is Angela Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm remembering right, Angela was a nun, sister
yeah.
of William Tecumseh Sherman's wife.
Yeah,
And
Absolutely.
he came there to pick up, because she was there and the kids were going to school at Notre Dame,
Yeah.
the grade school. And Notre Dame was so excited to have William Tecumseh Sherman there. They let him give what we would now call today the commencement speech.
yeah. And then we got Obama a few years ago.
Well, right.
And no relation.
And there was 88 people that got arrested, like your age.
Oh yeah, right.
Right.
I heard about that.
But anyway, that's just the interesting side note that. But getting back to chemistry, your study of chemistry, and your study of especially radio carbon dating 14.
Yes, right.
Which is usually the center. I mean, usually, if you in this book here, the whole idea is that the other the side that's against creationism is the Earth is so old.
Yes.
Okay, and it's so old because of radiocarbon dating 14.
Not that is not true.
No, but can you address that?
Yes,
because
I will happy
that
to.
kind of goes where people have been at. Okay, no, I'm not keeping up with how the classes are being taught today.
Well, radiocarbon. I will show you this to the folks that are watching. This might be helpful in explaining carbon-14 dating. Here you see a cartoon. We got permission to use this. This is a wolf, a dire wolf, and this is a dinosaur. And these 2 guys with spears are saying, why does he always have to make friends? And that's the cartoon, but they allowed us to use this. But the point is, we radiocarbon dated dinosaurs at 22,920 to 30,890.
And when you say we, who's we?
Well, the International Paleochronology Group, of which I'm the director.
You have that sign down in the basement.
Yes,
Okay.
he saw that.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I have that job permanently. The reason I have it is because nobody else wants it. Okay, so it's a permanent job. So anyway, I'm showing you this because the dire wolf that is shown here has been radiocarbon dated at 27,920 plus or minus, and the giant bison in the distance was dated at 30,810, similar ages as the dinosaurs. So dinosaurs and mammals and humans all lived together, but even these ages here are way too old, but they do take away the long ages that keeps evolution alive.
Because if they were dating dinosaurs, they said dinosaurs went extinct in 65 million years ago.
Yeah, based upon dating the rock, which is false mythological dating methods, which have been more or less disproved, but they still use them because it holds up the F-A-U-X, Fox, how do you pronounce? Teachings of Evolution?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, would you say, knowing the history of the geological charts, that once the breakthrough for evolutionists was the getting people to believe the world was old?
Yeah, that's correct. That's exactly right. That is the foundation arguments used by the Colby Center for the Study of Creation, of which I've been a member for the last 20 years, and Ademar, who is here today with us, he's a geologist, and he became a member of the Colby Center just in the last 3 or 4 months. We're both advisors, scientific advisors to him.
Hugh Owens, I said, Hugh
You
Owens,
met him,
He
yeah.
came into and he has a history back to England, and and I know all the history there.
Yeah, you know about his father being the head of the Planned Parenthood of the United Nations.
Yes. But Hugh Owens started the Colby Institute. He called it Colby because of Maximilian Kolbe.
Correct.
Okay.
A very saintly guy, that priest who lost his life in a Nazi concentration camp when he gave up his life for a Jewish
And
man with
and
family.
he questioned evolution in the church. I think
Absolutely, yeah.
okay. That was one of the things. But touching on Notre Dame and Father Zahm, the greatest Catholic thinker of the 19th century, according to a lot of people, okay, Lord Acton and people like that, was Orestes A. Bronson, who's buried at Notre Dame under the Basilica. And Hugh Owens for the Colby Institute has a lot of writings on his website of Orestes A. Bronson, who used the sharpest intellect of the 19th century for a lot of people, used it and said this evolutionary theory is it's an attack on Christianity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then he dies, and then Father Zahm takes over and says, "Oh no, we can use both. We can believe in both."
Yeah.
And that has been disastrous for the church because, like we were saying, and bringing it right to the point, is this Thomas McFadden.
Yeah, evolution.
Who's
of
a little
Catholic
bit younger than
unbelief.
you, but he's about 81.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
He's a youngster.
he's a youngster, right? But he has the argument that the evolution of Catholic unbelief. He's picking out Catholics, but it's everybody.
Yeah.
But the Catholics have really embraced theistic evolution, and he says by teaching theistic evolution, especially since Vatican II, there's been a mass exodus of younger people from the church, and the studies show it's because they're teaching theistic evolution.
But they still promote it as if. And I'm familiar with EWTN. Okay, I like to watch them.
Yeah.
They got good priests, and even the one who is the lecturer once a week on Wednesday night is Father Spitzer.
Jesuit.
Okay, you watch him?
Former president of Gonzaga,
Yes.
8 years.
Yeah,
That does
right.
not fare well for his
Yeah,
position.
and he's
Well, no,
solidly
he was, solidly
Catholic, except when it
Catholic.
gets to the foundations of the church. He solidly believes in evolution like all Jesuits do.
But the problem is, Cardinal Ruffini, ever hear of him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I read his book, and he's basically saying that you have to believe in the historicity of Adam and Eve because it's of the essence of the faith.
Yeah.
So if you're taking away something's the essence of the faith, well, technically you can't say you're Catholic then.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the whole point. I mean, if you don't believe in the resurrection, can you say you're Catholic?
Well, the foundational fathers were very strong, like Hugh Owen, and I have learned from studying the internet that the church fathers from Augustine, and they misuse Augustine, of course, you know that.
Well, yeah, but he said instead of creating the world in 6 days, he mistranslated a verse out of the book of Sirach and concluded he did it all in 1 day. Or at one moment,
Yeah.
but still, it's only 6 days
Yeah.
compared to 4 billion years or 14 billion years.
14.5 or 13.5, depending on which evolutionists you talk to.
If I could make an interjection here, in February of 1993, I was living in Los Angeles, and I was going out to the public auditorium in a place called Chatsworth in the valley, the San Fernando Valley, because every Thursday night there'd just be a series of speakers speaking on different subjects. And a man got up there and he showed a film that he and his son had made of their explorations of American coal mines in the previous 4 or 5 summers. So they would go out to a coal mine, they would go down into it, and the evolutionist scientists had already identified various levels of coal mines as according to the various geologic ages, the Cambrian, the Precambrian, Pleistocene, whatever it is, all this good stuff. Jurassic, don't forget Jurassic, that's the famous one. So they apparently went into these coal mines all up and down the overthrust belt there of the Rockies in Wyoming and Colorado and whatnot. And at various levels they would find a fossilized piece of wood and they'd dig it out, and then they would take a piece of the wood and they would have it radiocarbon-14 dated.
Really?
Yes. And there, to bookmark your 38,000 year our radiocarbon dating, their bookmark was far, far back from you. They were bookmarked at like 7,200 to 8,400 years was as much as they got.
Oh, you got to get that from me. That is fascinating.
I actually saw, this man actually made, his son was following him around these caves, filming the video of it. Remember the old VHS?
And then they would take the sample and mail it out to a carbon dating laboratory?
Carbon dating laboratory. I had no idea what it is. They just dated it because they wanted to keep it as low-key as possible. Well, then he wrote up a paper that he presented to one of the scientific conferences in the Northeast in somewhere around the year when Ronald Reagan became president, 1980. And he simply asked for this conference on geology and all this kind of good stuff. What do you think of my findings? And as I told Peter on a show, dead air. Not one response from anybody. They all completely ignored him. And so his video was about 45 minutes long. I actually looked at it on internet last fall. I found it on YouTube. I thought, oh my God, I know this guy because I had met him that many years ago. I didn't download the video. I couldn't find it. Now I can't find it anymore. So somewhere on the internet is this guy and his kid walking around.
Do you have his name?
No, I've tried every combination I can to think of it. Unfortunately, I can't.
Well, I just showed your cameraman downstairs a list of carbon-14 dates for coal.
Yeah.
And they were in the range of 45,000 to 53,000 years.
And what would the other scientists that believe in evolution, what would they say the date was?
They would say in the range of, I think they were 30 million to 300 million years old, depending on which strata that they check with their radiometric dating methods, which are based upon a lot of different assumptions.
So it's circular reasoning.
Yeah. And actually, I think the first Lyell, the Darwin's buddy, and also Hegel, was friend of Hegel's and all that bunch, he did something. What was I going to say he was going to do? Lyell.
He started the idea of...
Lyell. Yeah, I'm talking about Lyell. He measured little micro sectionings of French Alps, and there was like 250 meters, and so each one of these little things these laminations were maybe 1 millimeter. So he figured out that equivalent to 250 million years.
No.
It was a big, okay?
Yeah.
And then along came radiometric dating, and they upped it to 600 million years for this
much
sediment. Yeah. So for these little time laminations, but each one was like a year. But there were how many meters? I say 250 meters.
Correct. Yeah.
So you got one tiny millimeter, but he counted them or estimated them, and he came up to 250 million years old. And that was an assumption. Now, Ghiberto, who I'm just talking about earlier, he ran experiments in the laboratory and showed that these laminations can form very rapidly. Now, Mount St. Helens, I got to get that in here.
Well, no, he lives.
Yeah, right.
Go ahead.
I've been to Mount St. Helens. I know
Yeah.
what you're going
Well,
to say.
excuse me, Mount St. Helens has been to me.
Do you know?
Did you
the
get
story?
A's?
Oh, I got ashed.
Do you know this story?
No.
Go ahead, finish yours, please, Mr. Miller.
Oh, well, my story is that Mount St. Helens have been very carefully studied, and there was a mammoth flood of mud.
Yeah.
And the mud segregated into small, little tiny millimeters
Is it all
in
settled
a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And they maybe not near as much as in the Alps,
Right.
but it was still 50, 60 feet. And you could say that they were millions of years old, but they formed in an hour.
Yeah. And
And
it
see-
is today. It's 40 years this month.
Yes,
since
it
Mount
is.
St. Helens blew up.
Yeah.
And I walked out of Holy Mass on the Sunday that Mount St. Helens blew up at Gonzaga, and walked across the campus with my lovely bride and our little son. And there was one of my buddies from college, Todd, and playing tennis with his wife, Kathy. And we're chatting with them, looking down at the tennis court. And suddenly I look up to the southwest, and I went, oh, looks like a big thunderstorm coming, Todd. You better get under cover or you're going to get wet. And he goes, what's a little rain? An hour and a half later, it was a little more than a little rain, let me tell you.
How many inches did you get?
4 inches, about
4
that
inches
much.
of ash.
Yes, right in the front. And so I got into big trouble the next day. I was working for a stock brokerage firm, which we called Kidding Nobody, but it was actually called Kidder Peabody. So my mother's Peabody relatives were in there somewhere, I don't know where. And so I just put my hiking boots on and my suit, and I just walked downtown. I mean, it took me 20, 25 minutes to do it, you know. And it was slightly dusty in the air. I was wearing a mask, but I didn't feel any discomfort. And I get down to the office, and I'm the only guy there. And so suddenly the squawk box go off. You know, the guys in New York, Spokane, are you still there? I pick up the line and say, give us a minute. We're just digging a couple of trenches to divert some lava here. We'll get right back to you. And I hung it up, and everybody's laughing, of course, but Washington Water Power, the big power company in town, the stock dropped like 1/4 of a point, bang, just like that. And I thought, that was no, we don't have any lava out here. Don't worry about it. How many inches of ash do you have? Well, we got about 4. Well, then the stock dropped another 1/4 of a point. So,
Well, that's quite an experience. It's all similar to what we're going through right now. We all have to wear masks.
yeah, that's why I don't pay attention to what's going on. I was like, I've been there, done that.
Well, anyway, that's the story of Gilberto, and he goes on, and I think I'll let me read the very last parts he said. This is very astounding. Well, let's see. Moreover, without historical geology founded upon an incorrect a priori, Darwin could not have been led to write his Origin of the Species. Okay? Postulating survival of the fittest between species, upon which Marx and Engels and Sherman based their class struggle theory, thereby leaving Stalin a seminarian,
Joseph Stalin.
and Hitler a house decorator, and thus avoiding the Second World War, their a prioris having been exposed, the aforementioned disasters are circumvented. But history cannot be remade. However, by applying objectivity, it should be possible to return to its previous path from a scientific, political, moral, and spiritual point of view. Conclusion. The disastrous consequences of a prioris, assumptions, and rationalism in the natural sciences would probably not have happened if the sciences concerned had been founded on purely observed and experimental facts. This knowledge should help man in his search for truth. It appears all the more necessary in the critical situation and we are now living, and his paper appeared with mine in early January 2020 in the same journal.
2020.
Yeah, early January, and the title of the journal, it's an online journal, and it was supposedly peer-reviewed, and the title of the journal is geology, earth and marine science.
Okay.
Okay, and I have copies of that. I got a bunch of stuff to give each of you gentlemen who are from South Bend, so you do not go home empty-handed here. And I will talk about that if we have time.
May I ask a question, though,
Yes.
here? With your study of Darwin, was there any evidence he discovered in the Galapagos that would suggest any kind of evolution, either species-specific or generally in the landscape of the Galapagos Islands? Was there any evidence he discovered of that?
No, I mean, the Galapagos Islands, the birds that he studied were just what they call some kind of evolution, but it's just within the species. So if one bird dies out, microevolution. Should be a better name than that, but anyway, for whatever.
Species specific, yeah.
It is not changing from one species into another. And he knew that. He must have known that. I mean,
so
if he didn't, somebody taught it to him eventually.
He found evidence of...
beak change, the size of beaks.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
But then the beak was changed depending upon the environment, because the ones with the bad beaks, for the kind of the food environment they had then, would die out.
Of course.
And another one would take over that had the proper beak to eat the food of that time period.
So you have, on the west coast, you have the Pacific gull, or seagull, some people call them. Yeah, but there's actually the proper term is gull, and their beaks are a little shorter, and they're right into the stuff on the the barnacles and clams and whatnot, is what they're drilling away at on the beach. Whereas out in the Pacific coast, you have the larger albatross-sized gull, but the albatross is its own species. Of course, their beak is huge, so they can just kind of skim the water and grab stuff. Yeah. So is that the kind of stuff that Darwin found? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, I think that's what he found. He just found the microevolution stuff, and he made it into evolution of one species into another based upon the false assumptions of changes by mutation and so forth and so on.
Somebody must have helped him out with that.
I have never really studied him heavily. My main thrust has been inorganic chemistry, which is carbon-14 dating. So that's my specialty. Now, I cannot. Hugh Owen is capable of explaining that in far better terms than I would ever do.
But the big picture of it is that we're right now in the middle of this lockdown because of the science around the coronavirus. But a lot of people know that it originated, as far as the science, from this Neil Ferguson in the Imperial College, and it's science falsely so called. And so now, 35, 40 million people unemployed. Disaster across the board because of false science.
Yeah, the same as evolution, and we have a disaster there, and everything from religion to science.
Well, what the consequences of the false science of evolution are much worse, because it has the capability of destroying people's faith in the scriptures.
Right.
See, the coronavirus, it might destroy the country as far as our economy's crashed. It could be the end of America in a wild dream, But it could destabilize us. I don't think it will, but it could.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't necessarily cause you to lose your soul.
Yeah.
But evolution, if evolution is true, when you read Genesis 1 through 11, your dad read it to you.
Yeah, my uncle did. Yeah.
They're incompatible.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
Absolutely, and it's very simple. God created light, and then in 6 days he created everything else. Now, one of the biggest arguments I've heard is that the sun wasn't created until the 5th or 6th day.
Oh, they tried.
And I had priests throw that at me. I didn't know how to handle it. But what they're doing is denying that God could not have created light from another source. He's the source of all light.
He is light.
He is light. I mean, these priests got sucked in by Chardin and his predecessors, And I guess Episcopalians were the worst in England. Someone was telling me that.
The Anglicans.
Anglicans, yeah, they were the worst. They wanted to have free sex. Okay.
Oh yeah, they were really going. Yeah, yeah. But I think they all were. Notre Dame was breaking the rules in that way.
Oh
too.
yeah.
But like you were saying, that you brought up Zahn, but this year is the 100th anniversary of Father Zahn. Okay, who wrote his famous book Evolution and Dogma in 1894, and that book was immediately. They said we're putting that on the Vatican has a forbidden book list on the index, and they said we're putting that on the index, and Notre Dame said, oh please don't put that, that'll destroy Father Zahn and it'll really hurt us. So they said, oh okay, well we'll renounce those beliefs and we'll take it off the shelves.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't see where he ever did renounce those beliefs and take it off the shelf. So in other words, evolution then got a foothold.
Yeah.
At Notre Dame, and they call it theistic evolution.
Are you aware that they also translated his book into other languages through Europe?
Oh, I know
He was covered throughout Europe. And Europe went to the dogs, too.
Because once you embrace theistic evolution, as Thomas McFadden proved, which I could have told you, but I didn't have proof, okay?
Yeah.
I could have told you, hold it here. You can't believe in both, and that's what's happening. The individual, a huge majority of young Catholic individuals are concluding, hold it here, you can't believe in both.
Yeah.
And then if you do try to believe in, you know that word, cognitive dissonance?
Yeah.
Well, Paul, how do you explain that? You know, when you're believing in something that, Dr. Jones goes into this Averroism, that what destroyed Muslim philosophy was Muslims believed in Aristotle, who believed the world had no beginning, the world's eternal, and then they believed in the Quran. So in other words, I believe the world began 6,000 years ago, and I believe the world had no beginning. Well, you can't do that logically, can you?
No.
So when people say, well, I believe in evolution and the Catholic faith, the person on the street goes, what?
Yeah.
Right? Because logic says you can't believe in both at the same time, right? Isn't that?
And now we got the science, modern science, let's call it, or 21st century science, that shows that we have the kill shot. There is a kill shot for the theory of evolution if we can just get it out into the public somehow. I mean,
and that
carbon-14...
What's the kill shot? You think it's carbon-14?
Carbon-14 is the kill shot because you demolish the ages required for evolution to have succeeded.
In other words, the main thing is to say, well, prove that the Earth is old. And you're saying they're proof they don't have any.
They don't have any, except their assumptions.
They have the crystal ball mystery. Oh, we've proven that it's 600 million years old, and you're going, where's the scientific proof?
Yeah.
Because science requires observation.
Well, what I would say is, date the fossils, stupid, not the rocks.
Yeah. Well, you're in your book here on the fossils, the fossilized footprints.
That's the book he had
Could you explain that to us briefly? Because
Okay,
I think that's very
this
key.
is by Hilpenstein and Roth. And Hilpenstein and I think are both engineers. And so they came down to Texas and studied everything that the Creation Evidence Museum had discovered. And they went through all the expense and the travel and the proving to their satisfaction that what Carl Ball had discovered and other people associated with him had discovered was valid. So they put it through into a book. And this book, as on the back side, if you can see this, it says, "It looks like we have missed the boat." Well, we are finding footprints of the people and the animals who missed the boat. Now, some of their counterparts of that period got on the boat. 8 humans at least, although there is evidence that they may have taken a lot more grandchildren and other children with them. That's just speculation again, but then it's logical. How are they going to feed all these animals and people. Okay? You needed to have a lot more people than just 8 unless God provided.
Well, the scripture says there were 8.
I know.
And Peter says there was 8, right?
I don't know what Peter said. Did he say?
St. Peter,
Oh,
yeah. He said
yeah,
there was
okay.
8.
All right. So there may have been only 8, but there is
I'm going with 8.
theistic, not theistic, there is a famous seeress, a saintly woman who had God appeared to her, Christ appeared to her. She was taught, supposedly, I use the word supposedly, again this gets into rationalism, okay, a little bit. We're allowed to do that too, I guess, to some extent. But she was told that there were about 100 others that were on board with him to help take care of the animals. These were grandkids, and remember there were 4 families that went on board there. Noah and his wife and 3 other children, Seth, Matt. But anyway, I'm not so sure I believe that, but there is evidence of it. I only bring back, you can bring that up another argument. Here he's going to show that is wrong.
Well, so now, what was going on down in Texas that these guys confirmed?
Well, they found fossil human footprints with dinosaurs. And I think this is shown, going to be shown elsewhere, but this is dinosaur footprints going up and down the river during a dry spell. And this is, then there's human footprints off to the side. You can't see them here in this picture. Then there are footprints up around the 8 feet above the river in the very top strata. There are footprints of dinosaurs, and so far we are going to, this goes into a whole other bunch of research that we plan on doing, but Carl Ball, through the creation of his museum, has signed a contract with a landowner that he can excavate for 30 years, wherever he wants to, in something like 9 or 10 acres.
Must be a rancher who owns alongside the river there.
What's
or something.
that?
A rancher or somebody who owns alongside the river?
It's called the...
It's in here, right?
I guess.
Is it by Fort Worth?
No.
No?
No, it's south of Dallas, though. Southwest, I believe. Glen Rose, Texas.
Glen Rose?
I can't talk and think at the
That's
same
all right.
time.
That's all right.
But anyway,
we're getting close to that, too. Peter can't really think most of the time anyway.
Yeah, I know we have our problems. My problems are a little older than his. I'm 89 at this date.
Yeah.
McFall.
Oh, yeah.
McFall. Remember that. Don't let me ever forget it.
McFall.
McFall Ranch.
Yeah.
Now, the grandpa, I got to meet the great-grandpa.
Really?
And he died a couple of years later, back in 83 rather. I met the grandfather and made arrangements with him by phone for excavations without having Carl Ball there. And we found footprints without Carl Ball, so the opposition, the evolutionists who condemn Carl Ball for whatever crazy reasons they've come up with, they are lying, and if I may use that term, they're creating falsehoods. And so then the current landowner, number 3, is the son of the, then he died 2 years ago, but I got to meet him and give him some money to keep us excavating down to the 3rd strata. So we're down to the top strata, contains only dinosaur footprints, only 7. We found 3 more this last year, 2019. I was there for that. And but on the next strata, take 12 inches of limestone off and 3 inches of clay, and we have found 90 human footprints.
Below the dinosaur footprints.
And along with 300 to 600 dinosaur footprints, all along this ledge.
So I'm kind of a newbie to this kind of stuff. So you're saying to me, somewhere in Texas, along a river, there is a layer of rock?
Limestone that is called the Glen Rose Formation.
Yeah.
This formation starts many miles away, but it gets deep, thicker and thicker until it goes down into the Gulf of Mexico, where it is 40,000 feet thick. It's a basin. The Gulf of Mexico is a basin where much of the sediments ended up.
So in this layer next to a river,
Yeah.
you're telling me there are the footprints of dinosaurs, obviously in the rock, so they're kind of like frozen in the rock, and the footprints of human beings.
Yes, but we have to dig the top rock off first.
No, you found it. So
And then we find the footprints.
What does that tell a neophyte American
That's
just
to tell
hearing
me-
this the first time? What does it mean that there's a dinosaur footprint here and there's a human
There's
footprint there?
there's no 65 million years between dinosaurs and man.
So what you're saying is that at some point in past history, ancient history, these two creatures were walking on the same spot at the same time?
They
Is that what
would
you're saying?
run into each other. Let me show you this here. Thank you for bringing that up. I neglected that. Now, this is not a very good picture. It's very dark.
Well, just tell us what it says,
But
basically.
but you see,
Or is that you got it the other way around?
oh yeah, thank you.
Not in Chinese, please.
These are the casts of the three footprints that are associated with the actual concrete, or what we call limestone rock.
Yeah.
So this one has no toes, this one has 5 toes, and this one has 5 toes and a good heel. And apparently this dinosaur was coming along. Here he is. Look at this part here. The dinosaur was coming down this way, and this is a tail slash mark through this footprint. So you see, the main point I'm saying here is that they were walking together. Only in this case here, this is an eroded footprint. That's this one right here. You can't see it too well, but we show that in another view. But this fella here, 11 inches long, he was trying to avoid this dinosaur. So he moved his left foot over and made a very distinct footprint.
But even if that's disputed, what you're saying, it really can't be disputed that we do have dinosaur footprints and human. We only got 2 minutes left.
Yeah, okay.
And the biggest reason people believe in evolution, as far as what I see on a practical base, is dinosaurs were real. And dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years. And that's such a fact. Who would ever dispute it?
Yeah, right.
And you are challenging that.
We are challenging it, and we think it is the kill shot, but of course we also have dinosaur depictions worldwide. No wonder how do you get dinosaur depictions worldwide
what
if
does that
people
mean?
didn't make the depictions and
Well,
see them?
So like cavemen painted dinosaurs
Yeah,
in their
oh yeah.
caves? Is that
There's
what you're
even
saying?
a cave in France with a T-Rex starting to fight with a mammoth.
Really?
Oh yeah. That's just been-
somebody
Artists have put that, they've created something, or they etched it into the cave.
That's right.
I've never heard of such a thing. So you're telling me that in caves in France, don't worry about it, we don't have enough time for you to show me, but in caves in France, there are some sort of writings on the wall.
There's one cave that's now closed off, obviously, for obvious reasons.
There are a lot of people that-
Okay, this dentist, who also studied Neanderthals because he knows bones.
Did he write a book?
Yes.
I think
you
my
have that
friend-
book.
My friend bought like 20 of them. This is years
Okay,
ago.
yeah.
But I think we only have like 30 seconds or so.
Okay.
left.
We better
We're
close down
trying
this
to go
segment.
An hour. So, but basically, Hugh, you have studied this extensively,
Yeah,
and you're persuaded beyond any shadow of a doubt
no doubt.
that the Earth is young, and we got proof, the kill shot, carbon-14 dating, and the dinosaurs.
And soft tissue.
Yeah, and we have soft tissue. So how can you have soft tissue surviving after 65
That's
million
right.
years?
That's right.
Okay. So we will get together, or we'll continue on this, but this is Paul O'Neill with Peter Helland and Hugh Miller. We're calling the show Citizens for Community Media for back in South Bend, because we're in Columbus, Ohio. So the Lord Jesus Christ, blessings to you all.